All right, welcome in. It is another edition of Inside the Cage on BJPenn.com. I am Mike Pendleton, and we've talked a lot to UFC fighters. This is actually going to be the first time I talk to anyone from the PFL. Very interesting, to say the least, career, and he's got some downtime now that we're in quarantine, so figured it was best to get him on at this point and talk to him about the PFL, his changes, and his career journey. My guest at this time is Jeremy Kennedy. Jeremy, how are you?
Yeah, good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Well, again, as always, and like I just said, I appreciate you joining me. Let's get into, well, before we get into your career, what are you doing to bypass the time right now during this quarantine?
Man, it's you got a lot of time on your hands. It's kind of nice catching up on some sleep, though. Like not setting alarms or anything. Getting up whenever I want to, but yeah, I've been getting into the Xbox lately and just staying fit. I've got a Peloton bike here, riding, doing my cycling and some running and stuff like that. But definitely missing the training now.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So how does someone who's normally actively training, preparing for fights, and just staying busy, how do you, and I know you said you got a Peloton bike, which congrats to you because you can afford it. Some of us podcast hosts can't afford it. But how do, what workouts can you or are you and can other people do at home?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned the Peloton bike, I broke the bank on that one, but it's really, it's nice because I got it at the beginning of the year and, obviously not anticipating a pandemic and everyone quarantined in their house, but it really came in handy now, Everyone who's kind of laughing at me for spending that kind of money is jealous now. But, like a lot of the stuff you can do now is just body weight stuff is kind of what I've been, stuck to doing. I don't really have too many fitness equipment in the house. I'm working on getting that stuff, but yeah, it's just a lot of body weight and running. Running's free, so I just run for time and just stay fit and really watching what I eat. The biggest thing is that you can control right now is your diet, which is probably the hardest part it's ever been because all you're doing is sitting around and waiting for the next meal. But yeah, just keeping the weight down, staying fit, and just keeping up the cardio.
Do you find it a struggle to be going through? Obviously, this coronavirus pandemic is a lot bigger than not being able to fight, not being able to train. I mean, there are, thousands and hundreds of thousands of lives being lost. Do you find it like you're kind of taking more appreciation towards, being able to train and being where you're at during this time away?
Yeah, man, I think I've never took it more for, less for granted is now. I think everyone's kind of realizing just that it is bigger than the sport. I think when it first started, those first few days to week, everyone was kind of like annoyed with it and wanting to get back to schedule and, the UFC trying to put on their shows and everything like that. And everyone was kind of just waiting it out. And now that as it's kind of progressed and gotten more serious, I think everyone does realize that it's bigger than the sport, and everyone's got to kind of sit this one out. And MMA is minor compared, like not being able to go to the gym and train is minor compared to some of these sacrifices that other people are making with their jobs and their lives and everything. So that's kind of, I've found a bit of comfort in that. It still doesn't fix the problem of professional athletes not being able to excel or continue to develop and train, year round, but it's kind of comforting knowing that everyone's in the same boat. It's not like I have to sit at home and, not go to the gym and everyone else gets to keep training and getting better and improving, So now it's just take the time, heal up any nagging injuries that you kind of had and stay fit as best as you can. And then slowly we'll be able to adapt. And I think, everyone does their part now. I think it'll speed up everyone being able to train, but people that are trying, just not following the rules and everything like that, it's just gonna, drag this thing out.
Yeah, it's crazy times, but one I know I'm appreciative of, for better or for worse. And I've had some people go, "Wow, you've never worked so much in your life." I'm like, "Yeah, because between balancing two jobs and then trying to do this podcasting stuff, it's hard to find room in a day, 24-hour day for three, four jobs all at once." But yeah, I definitely hear you, and I know you spent some time in the UFC. Dana White's gotten a lot of flack for putting or trying to continue to put on fights.
Trying.
Yeah, starting with UFC 249 with Khabib and Tony. Who knows what's going on with Khabib? It sounds very unlikely that he's going to fight. Where do you stand? Because I'll just tell you what I've heard from a lot of fighters I've talked to. It is, hey man, we need the money. Like, we are not in the NBA, we're not in the NFL. We're not going to get paid while we're out of commission, basically. We can't just sit on the sidelines and get paid. So fighters do look and at sometimes depend on their next fight to be their biggest paycheck. What do you think of Dana White's efforts to keep on?
Yeah, exactly that. We're not like these other sports where, the season gets postponed or whatever and delayed, and they're still making money. It's a fine line, but I feel like, if these fighters are willing to fight, everyone has an option, and everyone knows the risks and going into quarantining and whatnot. I think it's all good. If the UFC and these other promotions can create an atmosphere that's safe, it's hard asking all these different coaches and cornermen and fighters to travel and, fly around, but if it's a more localized thing, I don't see a problem with it. It gives everyone something to watch and something to look forward to on the weekend. I'm all for it. I think, some of the lines he's trying to cross and things he's saying are just coming off a little wrong. But in the big picture, I think it's okay. But the way he's going about it just seems a little silly. Just kind of downplaying the COVID. Trying to make it not as bad and saying we should, we shouldn't hide and run and go hide and all that, and comparing it to cancer, just stuff like that gets a little overboard. But in the sense of, if the show still goes on and the fighters can still fight, I think so. I think it should be, everyone has their own choice, and it's, at the end of the day, fighters do need to provide, everyone needs to make money. So the show does need to go on, but to an extent.
Yeah, I'm somewhat in the same boat because I've caught a lot of criticism for not pressing the issue as much with fighters, but the show does indeed have to go on, and we'll see when it does go on for where you're at and where you've been at recently with the PFL. You made that switch. And I think now the next biggest name that we're going to see once the season kicks back up, PFL did announce yesterday, I believe it was, that they are postponing the start of this 2020 season. I know Bellator canceled all their May events. But we'll see Rory McDonald in PFL this year. You've made the jump yourself. Yeah. What is that jump like for you, and what was your experience compared to the UFC?
Yeah, man, night and day. PFL is my new home now. I love it there. It's from the season, the way they treat their fighters and everything like that. I really like the structure, and that's the biggest difference, is knowing when you're going to fight. Outside of a global pandemic, when everything gets pushed off, but for the most part, you have their months that are busy and fight season, and those downtime months like the January, the Februarys, and the money's still there, and I think that's the best part, is as long as these other organizations are all in the same field, Bellator and won championships and the UFC and stuff like that. There's more avenues to make a living and make a career out of this outside of the UFC. It's not do or die for making it to the UFC, it's tough though with them postponing it. I just saw that yesterday as well, and it is hard because PFL is different in the sense of delaying it delays their whole year, and they've got a pretty unique thing with the finals being in New Year's Eve. So I don't know how they're gonna swing that. I'm interested to see how it all plays out now with 2 regular season fights. Maybe they just cut that down to 1. The 2 fights of one night, that's always their October. Like they just they've been building a brand of unique things, and so I don't know how that's gonna all play out. I think that's I'm interested in it. It's my livelihood. I got to know when I'm fighting, and it does suck because right before it all kind of came out, like it really started getting big over here. I was really close to getting a date and an opponent. Like the start of the season was they announced that first fight on May 21st, and then there was one just first week of June, and I was looking to be fighting on that, and with a few other Canadians, and then all this kind of came out, so I never got any finalized, and I was kind of sitting in the dark. I didn't know what was happening, and then now it's postponed, so it does suck, but this thing's bigger than MMA right now, man. So it is tough, but everyone's in the same boat.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's the biggest part is that we're all in this, right? It's not like one side of this country can't train and the other can't. Like we're all going through it.
Exactly.
I think
it's not even the country.
Yeah, it's the world. Yeah, exactly. That was our next point. Is that it's absolutely everybody. How do you plan to approach this upcoming PFL season then? Or do you want to wait and see, when they offer you your next fight and then kind of hear from their side of things, how they're going to go about the season? Or, how do you plan to approach this year?
For me, man, I think the biggest thing any athlete we can control right now is our weight and our cardio, because we don't have the luxury of, okay, the band's lifted and the fight next weekend. We have that time to prepare that we need. 6 to 8 week camps. So I think if you can minimize that by just staying in shape and staying in my weight really low, once this thing all gets lifted, give me 3-4 weeks and I'll be good to go. So I think that's my biggest thing on this approach is just making sure I'm not on vacation. I'm not eating and not training and doing whatever. I gotta keep strict diet, study tape, and keep my conditioning up as best as I can. And as soon as they give the green light, get ready to go. And it's tough because I do all my bulk training down in the States, down in Xtreme Couture in Vegas. And as soon as all this stuff went down and the borders were getting closed and stuff like that, I flew back home to Vancouver, Canada. And now that's where I'm at right now. So, it would be nice to fly down to the States before any kind of fights. But, again, we're playing this by day, with the borders being closed. And the States is getting it a lot worse than Canada. So, I just think stay in shape, stay ready, and give me 3 weeks once the band's lifted and the show's on, and I'll be good to go.
Now, as we talk to Jeremy Kennedy here, fighting in the PFL on Inside the Cage on bjpenn.com, not too much longer here with you, but I really do appreciate all of your time today and your willingness to work with me. I know the schedule's been a little hectic between both of us, but which is crazy, right? If we're like, hey, we're busy, you're like, what are you actually doing right now?
Yeah, we have nothing going on. I was playing Xbox, so I'm good to go.
Awesome. He put down the controller for me. That's so nice. Hey, listen. Yeah. By the way, I haven't picked it up yet. I would say I did the same for you, but I haven't picked mine up yet. And that probably sounds crazy to some of my ex-girlfriends. My ex-girlfriends are like, "Wait, you haven't picked it up yet? It's 4:30 in the afternoon. How have you not played Xbox yet?" But they don't listen to my content anyway, so it doesn't matter. Getting back to you and all that you do, I know you said you're back in Canada right now. You are partially, or I think you are with Xtreme Couture, correct? Full-time?
Yeah, that's my full-time camp. I come home out of camp for a few weeks. I've got a house here and everything like that, but for the most part, whenever I'm in camp, those 6 to 8 weeks out before a fight, I'll be down in Vegas. And then actually just before this, I did a little trip down to AKA in San Jose, and I really liked it down there, you know. So I think it was actually like beginning of March that I was down there, and all these bands started happening, so I had to get out of there before everything got too crazy. And then I went to Vegas, and then from Vegas back home, all within a week. But yeah, I really liked it down in AKA. Khabib was there at the time, and you know, Javier Mendez, and I just like that too. So I think I'm gonna have it's a good connection to have, and split my time between there and Xtreme and home on the off season and stuff like that. So it's good, you know, a lot of different bodies and different looks.
Absolutely. Now, and you go through it and run through the PFL. I mean, you could have a home in Vegas. You could have a home in Canada. You can have a home in California. I mean, $1 million to do a lot for you.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's even more motivation, you know, to do that. I'm tired of paying rent in Vegas and then a mortgage in Canada, you know, so I might as well just own both properties.
Exactly. And then if you keep running through the seasons, now you can just start charging fighters. And when you're not in California, you can just run out your spot. And then just have one family home back in Canada. Keep 2 fight homes.
Yeah, do the old Uriah Favorite thing. You know, I think he did that in Sacramento there. He had a few houses that he would rent out, you know, for the guys coming in to help him out.
Yeah, no, I would be in, but not to come in and train. I'm not looking to get my ass kicked anytime soon. But I'd definitely be in to come down and visit Vegas. But speaking of Vegas, what is it like training at Xtreme Couture and Coach Eric Nixick? And he was kind of talking to me about some of the stuff that he goes through with you guys. But from your perspective, what has Xtreme Couture done for your career?
Oh man, I actually moved out there right after my fight with Volkanovski. You know, I was here training in a small gym with my same team, and the whole way through my whole tenure in the UFC. And after that Volkanovski fight, I kind of sat down. I was, you know what, I got to get out of my comfort zone. I got to go to a big gym, world-class guys, world-class training partners. And I actually went to Vegas because of the Performance Institute. And that kind of brought me there, and then I got in contact with Xtreme, and I needed the MMA training and stuff like that, so it kind of fit nicely. And then me and Eric, we clicked instantly, you know, and we had like a bond, you know, as soon as our first day. And that's when I was kind of like, all right, I'm all in. You know, this is my new head coach. This is my new gym. This is my new team. And, well, yeah, I went on a little bit of a tear there and just feel comfortable there. You know, now that's my home, you know, and I feel comfortable. I got good training partners always coming through the doors, you know, and it's a close-knit, but it's also, you know, a lot of these big gyms, it's just the gym, you know, and American Top Team in Florida and stuff like that. Where in Vegas, you know, there's a bunch of different gyms, but everybody's training with everybody, you know. So I'm training with guys from a bunch of different gyms, and it's more of like a community in Vegas, you know. Everyone's training with each other, not just at Xtreme, you know, all over the place. So it's a good mix, and it's a good environment, you know. You have so many different gyms. You have the PI, you have fighters coming into the PI for testing, and they're always dropping by Xtreme, so you're getting different looks all the time.
Now, being a part of Xtreme Couture and kind of going on that run that you mentioned has set you up really for a lot of success in your career, but your last fight did end, well, it got overturned to a no contest, and you know, you were riding a 2-fight win streak going into that fight, and then when you hear why it was changed to a no contest and your opponent popped, like, how pissed off does that make you?
Yeah, man, it's frustrating, especially with, you know, the stakes that were there. You know, I win that fight, I'm into the finals. You know, I'm fighting for $1 million. So it was definitely tough pill to swallow. But it's in the sport. You know, as long as there's always going to be high rewards, there's going to be people trying to make those risks and take those. You know, make every little cut. You know, take every little advantage they can. So it was hard, but the biggest part was just getting past it, you know, and not dwelling on it and looking at this new season. You know, that's all I can do. I can't really sit and dwell and make, you know, be pissed off at there's no one to be pissed off at. You know, it's just he got his fine. He's out. He's it's overturned. There's not much I can do. Both opponents popping, you know, that's kind of tough luck, and it was just unfortunate and not ideal. But I think doing the whole process, that whole season, fighting twice in one night and everything like that, it just kind of set me up for this year, and I'm more confident this year. And I needed that first year to be able to really know what a fight season looks like, you know, back-to-back fights and 2 fights in one night and all that. So, yeah, I mean, now that's all in the past. It's in the rear view, and I'm just looking forward to winning this $1 million this year.
Yeah, I think the stage is really set up for you, and I know you have a really good attitude about that. I mean, there are some fighters who come in and they'll be like, F this guy, F that guy. I mean, 2 opponents failing on the same night. I think that would make Nate Diaz walk away from this sport for good if that were to ever happen to him. But
it's got to be some sort of record.
Yeah,
fighting 2 guys in the same night,
and they both popped. Yeah,
exactly.
I can't imagine that. But on a more serious note, and again, I love your attitude and mindset towards it. But does that add some fuel to the fire? Because again, PFL is a little different, and you had the opportunity to fight 2 times in one night, and you're like, wait. Now the opportunity is taken away from me to go through and finish this damn thing, and like I have to restart it in 2020. You guys took something from me. And like I said, I love your last answer, but does this kind of add more to the fire for you?
Absolutely, man. It's you know, me and Coach Eric, we both took it personal. You know, we got dealt every shitty card in that deck, you know. So I think even from the very beginning of, you know, my first opponent missing weight and they switching opponents on me and 24 hours notice, and it's all part of the game, but it's just kind of unfortunate how all these little circumstances happen to me, you know, and I don't want to make excuses or anything like that. You know, it is what it is. That's why I just think I'm coming into this tournament full steam ahead. You know, I'm pissed off. I got something to prove. But I'm not dwelling on it. You know, I just every season, every fight I'm looking at, you know, making a statement and making a point. But this one's just a little bit more. It'll be a little bit sweeter. You know, that win will be just, you know, a little bit more satisfying after all this, you know, this previous year and the way everything shook out. You know, I can't wait. You know, it's so unfortunate the season got postponed. You know, I can't wait for the season to start. And I think I'm just coming into my own. You know, physically, I took this year, you know, from the last fight till, you know, my off season, I guess. I took that to really learn. You know, I was having fun with training. I wasn't focusing on my diet or anything like that, and I just wanted to actually just grow and get better. So I'm excited to show the new and improved me. You know, I've built a lot and added a lot of new tools. So yeah, I think whenever the season does start, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised with you know, how much of improvement. You know, I'm still young. I'm 27, so I still have that. You're not going to see the same me every time. You know, if every year I'm going to be drastically improving. So I think this year is going to open a lot of eyes.
Well, I love it, and I guess you made me feel a little better. I just turned 28 2 weeks ago, exactly 2 weeks ago, and
so you're not old, yeah.
Yeah, I was starting to feel that way, like, oh crap, is this really happening? Like, am I actually getting old? This is gonna piss me off. Now I'm closer to 30 than I am 20, and it's not a good time. But at 27, you're fighting in the PFL. You fought all over the world, and you fought in the UFC. Do you feel that experience at such a young age, and the the cards being stacked against you in 2019 in the PFL has kind of set you up to thrive not only in 2020 but in reality for the rest of your 20s and beyond?
Exactly, man. I think, you know, at 27, I can't call myself young in this sport, but it's definitely, I've got a lot of years ahead, and I think I'm just coming into my prime. You know, I would say, you know, from 28 to 32 is your actual physical prime. You know, so I think I'm just reaching that, and I already have, you know, I have that youth, but I also have that experience, and I think that's the perfect combination, you know, right now where I'm at, where I've been, all the stages I've fought for. I've done a PFL season. I fought in the UFC. I fought overseas in Brave, you know, in Morocco and Saudi Arabia, and, you know, really just uncomfortable environment. And I just think it's all coming together now, you know, physically and mentally I'm ready, and everything's coming together. You know, I had a lot of maturing to do when I first got out of the UFC, and my move to Xtreme Couture helped that out, you know, got me out of my comfort zone. And then physically, I'm coming all together, man. So I think it's perfect where I'm at. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, you know, at 27, you know, about to fight for, you know, this run to the $1 million.
I think I'm starting to realize why you and I got linked up together. I think there's a lot of reaching inside, and stop me if you've heard this before from your coach, Eric Nixick, but finding out what your why is. That's something him and I talked about at length, and it seems to be something that is a common theme between him and his fighters, and really my mindset when I have fighters on this show to talk about why they're fighting, to get, you know, you obviously haven't heard this before, but I'll reiterate it. You know, the reason why this is called Inside the Cage is because we know who's fighting. We know, you know, what you did in your last fight. But I think a lot of times in this sport, we don't know what you're fighting for or why you're truly fighting. So, you know, the goal for me is to get that out there. So I'll just ask you straight up, what is your why?
Man, yeah. The big part is that's exactly what Coach Eric says. Is, you know, he tries to bring that out of you is, what is your why? And my biggest thing is just to be the best. Like, I'm not in it for the money. I mean, the money's great, and don't get me wrong, everyone's fighting to provide, and, you know, the biggest chase and the biggest paycheck. But it's just the one-on-one, you know, that's what got me into the sport. I was never a team sport guy. I was, you know, I wasn't the ball hog, but I hated having to rely on other people, you know. So I think this sport, yeah, it's a team sport, but there's only one guy going into that cage, and that's me. So if anything goes wrong in there or whatever happens, it's 100% on me. But I have that control, you know, and I think the competitive atmosphere of it, just being the best, you know, and winning this tournament, that trophy, you know, the belt means more than the money. The money is just great, you know, and that's going to, you know, give me financial stability, but I'm just going to take that money and turn it into next year because I want to win again, you know. So it's not like I'm going to be driving fancy cars and buying mansions. It's going to be investing right back into myself to win this thing again, you know. It's just my why is being the best. I just want to win these fights. So I think that's why I love the PFL as well as the tournament, you know, and it's modern day fighting 2 times in one night. Like, how else do you test that will, you know, and that, yeah, just the competitiveness in me, that nature of me.
Well, I love it, and I'm going to be selfish and say when this all, you know, clears up and we return to normal life, I need you to fight in the New York, New Jersey area as often as possible because I definitely need to see you live. So we got to make that happen. Just make sure that's in the contract, please. Please think of me when you're signing your next fight. I'm obviously joking, but no, I want to just give you a lot of respect and, you know, kind of thank you for something because, you know, people, my background is coming from sports radio into combat sports, and people were like, how did you go from the NFL and the NBA to people punching each other in the face? And, you know, as a fan, as a football fan, as a Chicago Bears fan, which is embarrassing to admit right now, I have to go, well, listen, if my quarterback throws 3 interceptions, even as a fan, I can say, well, the receiver didn't run the right route, or he dropped the ball, or the quarterback was getting rushed. I can always look at somebody else, and I'll use what you just said and relate it to what Eddie Alvarez said, I believe, on Chael Sonnen's podcast after he lost the belt to Conor McGregor. He was like, I wish my camp would have told me the wrong thing to do because then I would have had someone to blame. But I stepped inside that cage, I got hit with a couple shots, and I threw the game plan completely out the window. And so that's what I love about this sport, and it's so nice to hear from a fighter like yourself who's like, no. Yes, I have a team, but at the end of the day, I step in that cage, I throw a punch, I might get punched, and it's up to me to determine the win or the loss. Let me just ask you this before I let you go. Where did where did your inspiration to get into fighting come from? Like, what led you into this career?
Actually, I grew up with an older brother, 4 years older than me and 150 pounds bigger than me. And, so I actually started in just jiu-jitsu and to get better, to be able to fight him and wrestle with him and be successful there. And just competitive. And, as soon as I started grappling, I found, success right away. And I think I had my first jiu-jitsu tournament within a month and a half of training when I was, 13 years old. And in the adult division, I didn't want to do the juniors and everything like that. So I was just constantly competitive, and then I think that's what got me, head first in. I dove right into it. I started wrestling in high school, and I started my kickboxing and boxing when I was 14, a year after jiu-jitsu. And I was competing in tournaments there, too, kickboxing tournaments. And I had my first fight when I was 16. It was an amateur fight, and, I fought all the way through. Then right out of high school, I turned pro. And I was like, this is going to be a full-time job for me. So right out of high school, I was training full-time. And I moved out to Thailand for a year, lived out there. I had about 4 or 5 fights within the year. And, came home, and it's just been full steam ahead since. I got signed to the UFC about a year after that. So it's all I know. It's all I've done. It's just my whole life has been for this, So I think another reason why I need to win this tournament, and really bring recognition to my career.
Well, I think you're well on your way. Before I let you go, Jeremy Kennedy, what are some let's say, physical, because obviously not everyone who listens to this is going to be a fighter, and yours truly, myself, I'm having a very hard time even getting any type of physical activity in throughout my day because I use interviews as my excuse. Oh, man, I should really go walk outside. Oh, well, look at that. I have an interview in 10 minutes. So what are you doing that's not physical activity related to bypass the time here?
Well, I'm in BC, so we got a lot of wildlife and nature. And so me and my fiance, I got 2 dogs, I got 2 boxers with a ton of energy. So, just keeping them cooped up inside all day is just a nightmare. So we've actually been heading out to the bush, way out into the bushes. It's far enough where it's social distancing and doing lots of hikes, 5-6 hour hikes. And, that's a good way to get out of the house and, and get your fitness in and stay active is away from everybody, way out into the bush. We've been doing that, and then obviously running. And like I said, there's a lot of people. It's funny. I see these online workouts and people doing, bench pressing and deadlifting their couches and, just silly stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with just doing, as many push-ups you can do, as sit-ups you can do, and squats you can do. And then when you're done that, do it again. There's a lot more basic body weight stuff you can do. And it's a lot, I've been more sore a few these days in quarantine than I have in full MMA training. It's crazy because you're just working such isolated muscles and you got nothing to do. It's almost like those prison workouts, all you got to do is just sit around all day and work out and use whatever you can to work out, and it's almost more beneficial sometimes. It's less scientific and, just go until you're sore and can't go anymore.
All right, I'm doing 2 push-ups and 1 sit-up as my workout, and I'll be sore, and then it's right back into the kitchen. Since you talk about wildlife before I let you go, have you seen Tiger King?
Yeah. Honestly, I think I was going to start that today. I've seen so much. I've seen too much of it on Twitter that I can't not now. Twitter and Instagram and everything. Everyone's going crazy about it. I think I owe it to myself to watch it. I wasn't going to, and because I've heard a lot of mixed things about it, but yeah, I've seen way too many people talking about it that I think I need to find out what the crazy about. Have you watched it?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I watched it like last Saturday. So I've developed a skill where I'll figure out what Netflix is releasing. I'll kind of do some research on it, and I'll be like, wow, it sounds like something I would watch. I'll wait a couple days, and then I'll watch it right before social media explodes over it, and then I get annoyed.
Yeah.
The only time, and I learned my lesson very quickly from this, is when you start to hear the small whispers, that's when you got to jump on it, because then you sound smarter than everyone else. Because if Tom tells John, oh, the one guy from Tiger King, he's done this, this, and this, and then it turns out to never be true, then it ruins the reason why you watched it. So, like, there's a lot of those Netflix documentaries that I've watched simply based off of I want to know before everyone thinks they know. And this is crazy to a lot of people, I've never seen Making a Murderer because so many people ruined it for me. And it's like, listen, if I would have caught it earlier, I would have watched it, but I didn't. So you guys can have that one. And it's a new skill I developed. Since I don't work out, I like to binge watch Netflix shows.
All right, so what is your recommendation? Do I watch it or do I not?
Watch it, but okay, so my recommendation is to watch it, but fully get through it before you start like tweeting about it or putting anything out there on social media. Yeah, like just knock it out of the park. Like, I've been watching Ozark right now, and I don't think any of my followers think I even like that show. But yeah. I'm finishing up the season finale today. I'm not talking about it to anyone. I'll wait until I'm done, and then I'll engage. Because once you watch it and you're not tweeting during every episode, or you're not reaching out to your friends every episode, you just get to come up with your own thoughts and your own conclusions on what's going on.
Yeah.
And then I would also recommend, if you're a crazy person like me, you got to do the internet background research afterwards. Like, I probably...
No, I do.
Yeah. All right. We're the same person then.
I'm big on the research on afterwards.
Yeah. So you're a kick-ass MMA fighter. I am a lazy-ass podcast host. But we're still the same person here because we have the same mindset. Yeah. But Jeremy Kennedy, this has been a great conversation, and I really hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have.
I have, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay in touch and stay active during this time, and I'll make sure I'm not staying active because I know you'll do as much working out for the both of us.
All you got to do is one sit-up, one squat, and one push-up, and just repeat that.
You know
every
what?
Hour, on the hour.
If I do that every hour on the hour, I think, you know what? We're on to something here. We're on to something here. All right, Jeremy, thank you so much.
All right, man. Take it easy.
That was Jeremy Kennedy, a very fun and informative conversation about the PFL, working through the coronavirus pandemic, and just the overall story of his career journey. I am Mike Pendleton. You can find me on Twitter at MP2310. Instagram at MikeP2310. Keep it locked here on BJPenn.com and subscribe to the YouTube channel here for BJPenn.com. More interviews coming your way later this week and the days, weeks, months to come from myself, Mike Pendleton. As always, until next time, we'll see you soon, everybody.